Hey guys, welcome back. I hope your week is going well so far. So today I actually wanted to talk to you guys about my 5 authors who I will instantly buy no matter what book they come out with. Most of these are authors that I am very familiar with their backlist, and there's actually an author on here who I have recently discovered, but I love them so much that they have automatically earned a spot on my instant buy list. As always, I'd love to know your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments who your instant buy authors are, whether they are part of the romance genre, if they're a totally different genre. I'd love to hear whoever they are because, as you guys know, I love hearing about new authors and new books that I may not know about because I'm always looking to expand my TBR. So without further ado, let's jump right in. My number 1 instant buy author is Jill Shalvis. I have probably talked about her before. She is a romance author who I have read for, oh my goodness, years and years and years. While she wasn't the first romance author who got me reading the genre, she is the one whose works I have probably read the most and the one who I use to set the bar for romance books, more specifically contemporary romance. Her books are heartwarming, they are absolutely funny. I would actually say that it was her books that got me into the more humorous contemporary romance because she writes her characters so well. They're so flawed. I have literally laughed out loud so many times reading her books, and they're very topical as well. I believe one of the more recent ones that I read in her Heartbreaker Bay series, she had a Harry Potter reference, which was just, first of all, amazing to my Harry Potter fangirl heart, but also the way that she incorporated it into the scene, it completely fit the situation and it had me rolling. So if you guys have never read Jill Shalvis before and you love romance, please check her out. I highly recommend it. One of the things that I like about her is that the majority of her works are part of a series, and I am just that kind of person who likes series because if I find that I like one book in the series, I've got this whole other cast of characters and books to dive into so I can stay in that world a little bit longer. So if you do check her out, her Heartbreaker Bay series is probably one of my more recent favorites. It spans a group of people where they are living in a apartment complex that's also kind of like a work-live play. Some of the people work in that area, some of the people live there, and it's just how their lives are interchanged. Obviously, each book talks about a couple that gets together, but it's so good and it's very entertaining and I highly recommend it. Next up, we have R.S. Gray. I know you guys have definitely heard me talk about her before. Most recently, one of her upcoming books, Hot Shot Doc, was in my most anticipated books coming out in 2020. I believe that book comes out early February, so we're only a couple of weeks out, but I recently discovered her, well, I guess it wasn't that recent, but I came across her books a few years ago and it actually helped drag me out of a particularly harsh reading slump that I was going through. Like Jill Shalvis, she is also a contemporary romance author who does comedy. Now, all of her books aren't necessarily comedic, but the ones that are, I think she does an excellent job with that. Her characters are flawed, her men are flawed, but in the best kind of way, and her women are strong, they're sassy. I love me a good sassy heroine, and if you're anything like me and you like that as well, definitely check her books out. I don't actually have a starting off point as to which of her series you should go with first because she does actually do a pretty good balance of standalone and series, so whichever side of the fence that you fall on, you can find books on either of those. I would say the most recent series of hers that I really enjoyed was the Allure series, and that starts with The Allure of Julian Lefray. I know for sure that was something that I have profiled on this channel before because I rated that one 5 stars. I think it's super hilarious. It's essentially a boss co-worker trope, but she does it in a way to where it doesn't seem rehashed and tropey in the worst kind of way. So if you do enjoy those kinds of plot lines, definitely check her out. She's definitely one of the authors who is my instant buy, and yes, you can best believe that when Hot Shot Doc comes out in a couple of weeks, I will be downloading it right away. So next up, I want to talk about Jacinto Wilder. We're gonna switch gears a little bit because she is more of an erotic romance writer, and her books are just so sexy, so well done. I would say to me, the most popular books, or rather the books that got me into her, is her Bad Bad series, and that's spelled B-A-D-D. Bad is actually the last name of a family who is profiled in the book series, and it is about a group of, I don't even know, wrong side of the tracks. I don't know if that's how you would consider them, but a group of brothers, and I will say the books have begun to become more and more extensive, so I think there are actually some females who get introduced, but anyway, it is a group of brothers who each have their own story, and they each have their own flaws, and each person that they meet, or each woman rather that they are coupled with, oh man, it's done so well. It's so sexy. Some of them are very dark. I will say that all of the books are obviously rated R or rated X, but very foul mouth. The family is very foul mouth, but I love it that much more because it really clutches at your heart to see this kind of standoffish character, typically the guy, soften up to a woman. And there are some cases where it's the reverse, where they may meet a woman who is more closed off than they are, and they are actively pursuing her and freely giving their heart, and they have to work for it. So she does a good balance. So it's not just your typical damsel in distress. She also has another series called I don't know what the series is called, but it's like Alpha, Beta, Omega. Those are the different books. And that series, I read it at the end of last year, and yes, it's erotic, but I was not expecting to be taken on such an emotional roller coaster because it is about a woman who gets an anonymous donation essentially right when she is about to just lose her job, lose her apartment, lose everything. And she gets this anonymous money from somebody. And even though she's suspicious about where it came from, she takes the money because she's desperate. And a year later, the anonymous donor comes to collect. And I know it sounds like such a crazy plotline, but she does it so well. And it's just, you know, her storylines, you would think when describing them that the males seem very brutish and unappealing, but she writes them in such a humanistic way to where you feel for them, you want them to have their happy ending, and it's for that reason she's definitely one of my instant buy authors. Okay, so next up we have Ikeyland, and I'm actually listening to one of her books that just came out a couple of days ago called Inappropriate. It was yet another book that was on my most anticipated reads of 2020, but she does romance very well. She is a little bit more new to me. I think I discovered her toward the end of last year, maybe middle of last year. But her books have been at the top of my must-buy list ever since I read her first book. And I think one of the reasons why I really like her books is because the narration is also done very well. If I'm not mistaken, the majority of her books that I have read have actually been listened to on Audible. And so naturally, the narration plays a big factor into it. And the narrators that she has gotten for her books have been just top quality, just amazing. There's one narrator in particular whose name is Sebastian York. I don't know if those two have a contract together or what, but he narrates the males of a couple of her books who I've listened to, and he just does a fantastic job. I will admit it wasn't until only recently that I started listening to romance books. In the past, I've only read them just because I feel like sometimes the sexual situations can be a little awkward to listen to, even if you are listening to them alone. But Sebastian York's voice is just so personal, and even though he has been depicted as different characters in separate books of hers, each character that she writes is so unique that it doesn't even matter that it's the same person narrating it, because you see a completely different person when you're listening to it. And I think that relationship between the narration and her actual writing is just a match made in heaven, because she has done such a good job developing these characters. Even though at times she uses the same trope, it's a completely different story, which I really appreciate. Now, in terms of the book that I'm reading right now, Inappropriate, I'm not that far along in, but already it's turning out to be a 5-star. What I think she does well is the coworker trope. So a few of her books that I have read before, such as this one, Inappropriate. Another one that she's done is The Christmas Pact, which I think was like one of Audible's spotlight during Christmas time reads. That was excellent as well. In terms of the kind of books that the Ikeyland writes, she does contemporary romance. They are heartwarming, they are sexy. I would say that they're probably a little spicier than the Jill Shalvis books, though not as much as the Jacinto Wilder books. So kind of using that as a barometer. So naturally, I recommend her books, and if you are going to pick up one of her books, I definitely recommend listening to it on audio, just because I want you to experience the narration. While I have gone on and on about Sebastian York, the male figure who narrates her stories, the women have been equally as well narrated, so you're going to get fleshed out characters when listening to her books, which is why she is definitely one of my instant buy authors, and why, for the most part, when I usually pick up one of her titles, they are through audiobook. Okay, last up, this author is actually the most recent author who I recently discovered, and when I say recently, I mean like 2 weeks ago. But her work is just that damn good that she has instantly made a spot on this list, and that is Whitney G. She is a romance author, of course, and she does contemporary romance as well. The first book of hers that I actually listened to was called 30-Day Boyfriend. I got it on Audible Escape, and man, let me tell you, it's a short story, but it was done so well that I knew even just halfway through that I was going to give the book 5 stars. It was sexy, it was heartwarming, it was funny. Despite the fact that I just found her, I will say she is definitely an author whose work I will be consuming. I'm actually glad that I just found her because she's got a whole slew of backlists that I plan on going through, but I really like her work, and one of the reasons why she shot to the top of my list, other than the fact that her stories are very well written, is that she has done an excellent job conveying a lot of emotion in a short story. The few stories of hers that I did read, or listen to rather, they were shorter, probably novella length. And I know for me, it's hard to get into a story that is a short story or a novella because there's not a lot of time for character development. And so usually at the end, once the two characters get together, you don't really care as much because you're not attached to them. There haven't really been any stakes. But in her case, that is the complete opposite. In 30-Day Boyfriend, Cocky Client was another one of hers. While they were novella length, you grew to know the characters in such a short amount of time, and so by the time you did get to the conflict, or even once the conflict was resolved, you actually cared, you were happy, you were cheering for the main characters to get together, which is something that I'm super impressed with to be done in such a short amount of time. Another reason that I recommend her is exactly because they are shorter. So if you are looking to download a bunch of audiobooks for a long commute or a road trip, or you want something shorter just because you don't have the time to dedicate to a full-length book, I would recommend her because, like I said, her stories are shorter, but you're still getting the impact and the intricate plot of a full-length novel without the time commitment. Okay guys, there you have it. Those are my 5 instant buy romance authors. Like I said, please let me know in the comments below who your instant buy authors are, whether they're romance, whether they're a totally different genre. As always, I just want to chat with you in the comments so that I can get more book recommendations. And please like and subscribe if you like this video, if you like this kind of content. I'm also actually looking for video ideas, anything you guys want to see. I'd love to hear your suggestions. So yeah, until next time, bye!